Alright, well, GoPro test one. We're going to be strolling along here, my usual route through Thatcher Woods. Saw some deer on my way in over that way. Hopefully we'll see some other wildlife on this lovely stroll. It's a chilly Saturday morning. Temperature is probably around 40 degrees. Just enough I can see my breath. But it's about a 2-mile round trip that I do here. Everything's okay with the ground not too muddy, and I get deciding I don't want to have to clean my shoes later. But we haven't had a ton of rain. It's been cold, so I'm not expecting that. Earlier this week, about a mile north of here, we saw, my wife and I driving, actually saw a bald eagle, which was like really unusual for this area. A couple miles south of here is Starved Rock, and they have like a nesting area down there. A couple times a year you can go down there and see them on special weekends, so you can see the eagles on the river. But we've never seen one here, but it was floating, very clear to see. There was no mistaking it for anything else, so that was pretty cool to see one of those in the wild, as they say. But weirdly, it is November 22nd, and it looks like fall now. At the end of October, around Halloween, a lot of these leaves hadn't fallen yet, and it did not look this pretty. This is orange and fall. I mean, you could argue global warming. We're off about a couple weeks on our seasons, and that has been happening for the last decade or so. But yeah, there's a lovely field over here. A lot of people play soccer, take their dogs. They still made the distance there with one. But yeah, this is just a lovely little stroll that I take. It's pretty close to the home, and I like it because I live in the near suburbs of Chicago, so you don't think of this as anything that you would find in a large metropolitan city like Chicago. But one of the secrets of the Chicago area is the Cook County Forest Preserve. They don't get enough credit. You can do a whole video at some point on the history of the Cook County Forest Preserve. But basically, there's all this protected land, and we're going to be going over that way, and you'll see the Des Plaines River, but like along a lot of the rivers and stuff like that, there is acres of forest that is protected and everything, and it's just it's easy for us to forget with all the skyscrapers, cars, and buildings that we don't have to drive 2 hours away to go out and enjoy a little nature. So, I mean, can you walk completely out and not hear anything here? No. I mean, you can hear, when we get over to the river, you'll find that there's First Avenue is just on the other side of the river, which is a pretty busy highway, and you're possibly hearing the cars in the background, if not when we get closer. But yeah, that is where we're at here. But yeah, we just don't get enough of this woods, thinking that we're in a metropolitan area. So there's some other areas that have the woods, and then they have paved bike trails and hiking trail as part of it. And those are fun, especially winter. You know, if you don't feel like trudging through a lot of snow, those seem to get cleared off. And you can still get out and be in the woods a bit. But I find, like on a day like today, or especially when the weather's nice, there's a lot of people biking. A lot of people. And they're doing it for exercise and so on, but they do it quickly. And if you're walking, somebody could come tearing up behind you, and it's fine. But you know, just it doesn't give you that feel of I am in the woods. So this to me, if you although you can see like that's Thatcher Avenue in the distance over there. You've got railroad tracks right here, which is kind of the divider of this area that I call it. So yeah, we're just kind of trudging along here. Let's see. Can you see in the distance the deer there? Yeah. Well, there's one. There's usually 3 to 5 others. Once or twice I've actually managed to see a good-sized buck over here, but not all that often. You can see right here in the recent past, the Forest Preserve people have been out and kind of clearing some of this, getting ready for winter. You know, but yeah, this is delightful. I should have said that it's about right now it's probably about 7:10, 7:15 a.m. on a Saturday morning. One of my favorite stories of doing walking over here was right in this area, maybe a little farther ahead. It was somebody was out walking their big old black lab, no leash, which was fine because you're in the woods here, and it was a lovely, friendly dog. And he was walking around sniffing everything, wanders over to see me, and we pass. And about 10 feet after we pass, I realized there was a deer just laying there in the grass, looking at the dog from about 10 feet away, and the dog never noticed. And I found that humorous. One of my first winters over here, I went this way because this was all snowed in. I didn't notice, and I went this way like thinking that was the trail. I ended up finding quite a few deer back in there. It was kind of fun. Let's see. I do know when the snow comes down, there are people that come over here and do a little cross-country skiing. I've seen you'll see the marks of the skis. I'm always kind of fascinated by the idea of snowshoes. Just not sure how much use I would get out of them versus the cost of them. For my size, I'm 6'2", 260, older man now. If you're watching this channel, you know it's the Adventures of an Old Nerd, so that's me. But I do like the idea of being able to come over here in the deep snow and stroll around and with the snowshoes. Good exercise on top of that. Wouldn't worry about falling because there'd be snow. But look at that cool bark. Yeah. When we get near the river, you might see signs of beavers. I want to say 2 summers ago, the wife and I were out here walking and we saw a beaver swimming through there. You can sometimes see where they've been chewing on a tree kind of see where they got a dam, or working on part of a dam, probably their nests underneath there. The beavers have nests? Is that what you call that? Den. A den. I think it's a den. That's probably it, yeah. So, it's a little soft over here, the ground that is. More area where the Park District, Forest Reserve District was clearing some brush. And this little trail here goes back up to right behind where you saw that shelter I showed you a little while ago. You can kind of see the roof of that shelter in the distance up there. But yeah. And you kind of see some buildings in the distance here through the trees. That is the other side of First Avenue. So just on this side of those buildings is the river. If you're not familiar with the area, we use the term river for the Des Plaines River. Now, if you're expecting, a football-wide field or a football-wide river, roaring rapid and stuff, you're going to be a little disappointed. I'm not sure what denotes something as a river versus a stream or a creek. But I know, as far as the Des Plaines is concerned, it's not something I would want to try to wade across. Because you're not sure what's out there. But, you probably could in the case of, say, a zombie apocalypse. Interesting. This is new that we're over here doing the winterizing of the forest. I think that's some cottontails over there. Kind of neat. But yeah, this is new right here. This is not torn down before. So you can see here, the ground is starting to get a little muddy. But it could have been because they had trucks back in here, I'm sure, doing some of this. A little dipsy doodle here on this. Alright, looking at. And where this green is and stuff here, that's the river. Take a look. The leaves, just a blanket here. It's beautiful. A little bit of the green still here. Like I said, it's November 21st. This is nice. But this is the Des Plaines River. That horrible thing over there is First Avenue I was talking about earlier. But you can see trees there that have kind of come down. Been there for years now. Makes me kind of wonder if it's a potential beavers in there. A little bit of a fog weather. That's totally cool. We're going this way. You can see more right there. More fog. Here's some geese in the distance too, making their way south, I'm guessing. But from the summertime when the weather's nice, and I go down a few places a little farther south, down Willow Springs, Illinois. There's it's a half hour south of here. That's not highways half hour. That's a street half hour. It's the Illinois-Michigan Canal area. There's a path along there you can walk. Again, one of those paved ones I was talking about. Turtles, man. So many turtles I saw down there, just out on the branches. I've had to be out there just sunning themselves when the weather's warm. But I've seen cranes, which has been utterly delightful. So, again, bald eagle, cranes, things you'd never, beavers, things you'd probably not 100% sure you'd see. Um, One of the things I've not seen over here in all the years I've been coming over here is two things I can think of. I have yet to see, well, they're both nocturnal, so there's a trail that goes back up in there. But I have not seen a coyote or a fox. I've seen a coyote in the city one winter, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, probably 10 o'clock at night. At that point, my wife was working in the city. I picked her up, and we watched a coyote coming out of an area, just kind of jogging down the street. Stayed on the sidewalk. He obeyed the laws. It was really nice. And you'll see stuff in the news occasionally where there's a coyote got in a grocery store, eating and stuff like that. But those make the news. And it's not that there aren't coyotes over here. I'm sure there are, because I actually have seen one. Let me think, where am I at here? This would have been 5 minutes that way. One time I was training for a 5K. This time of the morning, I went to kind of jogging, looked across the street, and coming down the driveway, somebody's house was a coyote. Kind of jogged on the other side of the street alongside me for a while. But they tend to be more in the cemeteries, which in that area, closer to my home, is a lot of cemeteries. The area I live in, Forest Park, was once known, maybe still, as 2 or 3 places in the country that actually technically has more dead people than alive people because of the amount of cemeteries. And if you want to look up the Haymarket Monument, ducks, Haymarket riots and the Haymarket monuments, that's why they wouldn't allow some of the rioters and stuff to be buried in the city limits, so they had to move them out here to get buried. And it was kind of a very German heavy village at that point. And the other reason there were so cemeteries is it was one of the places where on Sundays I think it was Sundays, you could drink. You could come out and bury the family and hit a pub, which, I think is a lovely idea if you got to do that. Toast the family. Well, joggers in the distance. I'll probably stop talking when they get close because, I'm going to be that guy. But, yeah. One of these days I'm going to hopefully catch this when there is just a lot of fog. I'm going to be really creepy and cool, and that's kind of a goal. Kind of fun. See, now that might be something I'm talking about with the beavers. That area right there. I'm not sure, but yeah. There's some more people, so I'm going to go up and over this way briefly. That field I showed you earlier, that's the other side of it, so we're on the far side of that now. With the sunrise coming through there. Utterly gorgeous. Yeah. There's a peace and quiet I get. Oh, look, deer. A couple points on that. The buck. Yeah. And for the record, I'm not a hunter. That's just the vernacular. And if you're not sure what that means, that's how many tips on their antlers. The more tips / points is the more desirable if you're hunting. Like an 8-point buck is pretty impressive. One of these videos, I gotta go out and to nearby Elk Grove Village. Surprisingly enough, they actually do have a pen of elk. Probably their pen out there is the size of that, at least that field that I was showing you, if not bigger. Somewhat wooded. But if they're in the mood, you can catch the elk running around out there. Kind of fun, especially if they've still got their antlers on. They haven't shorn them yet or been shorn. I think somebody told me once that they take the antlers off of them. It has something to do with hurting themselves come rutting season. They get locked. Kind of believe that. Sort of makes sense. We've got some geese up here. I'm staying to one side because of how muddy it is. It's not horrible, but you know. Yeah. Yeah. There's some ducks in the distance. See, they're standing a little bit out there, so when I was talking about how deep this is, I'm not sure, but I mean, the water's not the highest it's been right now. You can kind of see how that other side there kind of goes up like that. When the river's high, it's over that bank. Used to be years ago, again, 10 years ago, this over flooded everywhere. Like this whole area in here in the spring rains would flood. But they actually dredged the river a bit. So it is deeper in the center, which prevents the overflowing, if you weren't aware of that. So that's what we have here. I made a small mistake today of not bringing gloves out, but this is a test with the camera, so I'm probably not doing my full length of walk here. This is just a little loop around to avoid this in here. But pretty soon there'll be a trail that goes up to the field, to the parking lot where I started. You can see, obviously, the trucks were in here. So that is, they did the fall cleanup. In the winter when I'm over here, I like these kind of trails when you find them. And you'll find little bits of deer poop. And that's how you know where the deer are if you don't see the trails, or the tracks I should say. So I'll follow that sometime into deeper weird stuff, and you'll find them. Not sure, why I'm so fascinated with deer, but I am. There's something calm about them that I like, which is, why I take walks in the woods, is in today's world, sit in front of a computer a lot, deal with people, you need to find ways to relax, de-stress, and for me, it's obviously not with that traffic in this area, but there's something about a calm, peaceful walk in the woods that kind of does it for me. So, yeah, I didn't expect it to be quite this nippy this morning, but walking with my hands in my pockets is fine, but obviously I can't hold the camera and do that. So it's okay. I kind of want some breakfast anyway. So this is kind of surprisingly harder, not as muddy. It's interesting. You see the markers like this here with the hat on it. Not so much the hat, but the marker itself. That tells you there's a trail there, which is the one we're going to take. Could continue this and go under the bridge, and there's trails back there to lead you to and behind Trailside Museum, um, which is, it's a little tiny thing. They have a few hawks or something in cages out in the back that have been rescued, injured. Inside there's fossils and some stuff like that, everything that's been found in the area. So it's, especially educational for younger children. Um, I just like that it's there. One of the cool things it has is on their back fence, it's got colored pictures of local birds you would see in the area. And I'm not talking sparrows or crows, but like cardinals, various species of cardinals, bluebirds, things like that. So something where you see a flash of color and you're like, what is that? And you go over there and go, oh, that's that. So I like that. That's very nice. A little muddy here. And then again, there's the field I showed you. We were on the other side of it. So, yeah, you can see in here where they've done more clearing the brush out for winter. This kind of older around here, the woods at least. My wife grew up around here, and she talks about, they've been here since she was born in '68, so I've been here in the '70s at least since she remembered. So a lot of these trees, and remember when I told you about this whole area would flood, right? Which is probably not good for the roots in the long term. But there's a lot of them, and kind of see that's a tree that fell on its own, obviously. So we get some high winds and some of these older trees finally decide it's time. And I'm sure for the ecosystem, there's some goodness. Like this one's been here a while, so they keep some of them out. And then there's others where they're like, okay, I don't know if there's any fire hazards or anything like that, but you can see some of this. Maybe they're coming back to clear some of this out, but with the moss on this, I can say these have been here a while. You can tell. Now that brown spot back there, that's kind of newish. So that could be stuff they cleared recently. So that's kind of messy. Here they pile a bunch of stuff with rabbit warrens. Probably other little creatures besides rabbit, but rabbit's the first thing I think of there. Not as many birds out today as I usually see. Usually followed by robins and little black crows. But it is a little cold. So I can kind of see, I should have pointed these out. I think I saw another one earlier with the branches it's like kind of lean-to things that some of them are done by the forest preserve, and you'll occasionally see a deer in there, and some are done by, I think some of the local kids in the area will come through and decide to, play games and do it. It's nothing bad. They just pile a bunch of logs up and stuff, sort of around one tree limb, and sort of make a little equivalent like a teepee. Nothing. Nobody tries to stay in there or anything like that, but I'm sure they play games like we all did when we were kids. But well, I'm coming to the field here. Oh, another big dog and the pretty dog. So here you can see something right there where they chopped some recently, very recently, based on the coloring of the wood. So there's that shelter where that other trail led up to. So, oh yeah. It's a delightfully fun and brisk morning. I'm looking forward to some coffee and breakfast. But yeah, we'll do some more of this. You know, another month or so. Maybe I'll do the same hike, assuming this worked out okay, and then see how things have changed a little bit. All right. Thanks everybody. So hit and subscribe. So whenever I do new videos, you get it. Thank you.